What's going on there guys, CG Gaming here, and in today's video we're going to talk about the Anthem VIP demo that's been live this weekend, and I'll give you my thoughts and opinions on how my experience has been in the game so far. As a long-time fan of looter shooters like Borderlands and Destiny, Anthem of course piqued my interest as soon as I first heard about it. It's been called many times the Destiny killer, so let's just dive straight in and see if the predictions were true. Anthem is developed by Bioware, famous for the Mass Effect and Dragon Age series, and it's published by EA, who we all know haven't made the best decisions for their player base in terms of monetization of their in-game stores. So there's always been this shadow looming over Anthem, with EA being the guys behind it, but they did specifically state that there will be no loot boxes in the game and the in-game store will be purely for cosmetic items, but all of these items can be purchased with coins alone, which is the in-game currency in Anthem. Shards can be purchased, which is the premium currency you can purchase for real world money, but you can't buy items with just shards, you also need the coins. Now I can see them doing something like this. If you're buying the items with just coins alone, then the numbers will be quite high, while if you're buying them with coins and shards, then the number of coins needed will be quite low. This is to incentivize people to buy the premium currency. Of course it's just my opinion, it's not factual, yet. Anyway, let's talk about the actual game itself. When you first jump into the demo, you'll appear in a city called Fort Tarsis, where you can interact with NPCs, progress with the story, upgrade your javelin, and go on expeditions. Now I'll go over exactly what a javelin is shortly, but the city itself has a lot of stalls and markets and NPCs in it, but it feels pretty empty in itself. There's only a few interactions here at the moment, but that's because it's just a demo. There were plenty of objects that I had a prompt to interact with, which would just then tell me that the feature isn't available in the demo, which is fair enough. Now, the one major problem that I have with the city is you can't run. When you press the run button, you can tell your character is moving a tiny bit faster, barely anything really, but you are moving slightly faster, which I really wouldn't class as running. It's a pretty small city, but big enough to warrant a proper run button, so every time you have to go back to the city, it's a bit of a ball ache. So Bioware, please make sure that you add a proper sprint feature in the city before its release. It's a much needed feature that a lot of the demo players have complained about this weekend. So the first part of the story kicks off with a guy called Matthias talking about some ancient relic that can multiply energy, and that it would be pretty cool to somehow infuse that in with your javelin. So off you go on your first expedition to find this so-called relic in the game's first mission. The missions in this demo so far are all pretty bog standard for this game genre. You have to head to the marker on the map, shoot a bunch of bad guys, and then head to another marker, complete another objective to move on, etc. What I will say though, which was a nice touch, is the puzzles in this game. The one I'm showing now is a room that has 3 pillars in it, each with some kind of energy light thingy-bob on it with different colours, and you need to complete the puzzle to drop the shield that the relic's hiding in. I was playing with random, so we kind of just ran around changing the colours on the energy light tower thingies in hopes of getting the right combination. Eventually we discovered that there are symbols in each of the tower's area that shows you what colour is set to that specific tower. The game doesn't show any help dialogue, so you kind of just have to work it out for yourself, which I did enjoy and I did love that, so I'm hoping to see more of these in the retail release. Once you have the relic, the mission ends and you can return to town to give the relic to Matthias. I won't say what happens next as I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but just know that it has potential to be a great story. We just need to see more of it in the retail release. Now let's talk about the combat system and javelins. Now javelins are powered exosuits worn and piloted by freelancers. They grant their wearers superhuman capabilities and are heavily modifiable, allowing for a number of unique individual models. They're also flight capable and equally maneuverable underwater. In terms of weapons, in a nutshell, you get 2 weapon slots that doesn't seem to be tied down to weapon types. You get a grenade gear slot for grenade and bombs, an assault gear slot, which is basically a wrist-mounted launcher that can harness all kind of different abilities like homing missiles and beams of light, and a support ability slot where you can pop temporarily shields that can either protect you from bullet damage or give you a buff that increases the amount of damage you do, similar to Destiny's Titan Ward of Dawn, Armor of Light, and Weapons of Light. You also get 4 different javelins or classes, which are Ranger, the bog standard and starting class, Colossus, the tank sort of class, Storm, the mage or warlock type class, and the Interceptor, which is a fast moving ninja type class. These classes have access to different skills and abilities, and each class has a unique ultimate attack. I love the fact that you get to swap classes all with one character, unlike Destiny 2 where the classes are tied to the character. It reminds me more of Warframe and their different, well, Warframes in the game. The combat itself does feel pretty nice, especially once you start getting better guns and start experimenting with different loadouts, but a lot of the enemies are pretty bullet spongy, especially bosses and higher elite type enemies. This all changes when it comes down to combos. The way that combos work is that it ties down to your grenade gear, your assault gear, and sometimes also your melee gear. When selecting abilities at the forge, which you can do in the city right next to where you embark on a mission, you'll notice little symbols next to the abilities names. You've got a primer, which looks like a circle with fire in it, and a detonator, which looks like an explosion. The way it works is basically you first use your primer to prime the enemy. This could be, for example, a frost grenade, and if the elemental effect takes place, as in the enemy is then frozen, you can then use your detonator ability like a homing missile or shock mace melee attack, and that will then cause a combo which does a crazy amount of damage. Different javelins have a different combo attack with different effects, but this leads to such a massive amount of customization and in-depthness with the combat system, which I just absolutely love. In theory, this is an awesome idea, but I don't know, it didn't feel all that exciting. Sure, once you get after your first few combos, it's like, whoa, look what I just did there, but the game's combat system it felt more flashy than fun. It's not boring, don't get me wrong, it just didn't have that special something that caught my eye, unlike what Destiny did many years ago, despite the system not being as customizable. It's going to be interesting to see how this develops over time, or if anything's majorly changed by the time the full game is released. That is of course just my personal opinion, and I know that others feel differently and they just love the combat system. It definitely felt more like Warframe combat rather than Destiny combat, most likely due to the fact that it's all third person. Maybe that's why I didn't find it as exciting. I'm definitely more of a first person shooter type of guy rather than a third person, so really it just comes down to more of a personal preference type of thing. Now moving on to the good stuff, the loot. Now there's a ton of loot in this game as it is a looter shooter. Even with the amount of time I actually spent playing the game, I collected a ton of different guns, ranging from assault rifles to heavy pistols, which has the same colour, power scheme and rarity that's widely followed in these types of games. And it goes a little something like this. So you've got white or grey is uncommon, green is common, blue is rare, epic is purple, masterwork is orange, and legendary is yellow. And as a bonus, you can also get extra random rolls on your loot, like extra ammo, extra power, extra shields, etc. Although I did get some secret grenades that had ×2 plus 0% damage. Don't really get the point in that, but yeah, random rolls will be a thing in Anthem, which adds on to the replayability factor of the game. The annoying thing is that when the loot drops, you run over the items to pick them up, but you won't know what the item is until the end of the mission, which I just don't like. I love when you get a rare drop in these types of games and you get that moment of realizing, holy crap, it dropped. You'll still get that, but way later on once the mission is over. Also, does that mean that if you fail a mission and end up backing out, or something happens in real life and you need to go, do you lose that loot? I don't like the idea of that at all, especially for all of us dad gamers out there that need to suddenly log off to take care of our kids. You're also locked into your gear set whenever you're in a mission, so you can't actually change any gear or weapons mid-game. This and the end mission loot screen I think really needs to be looked into and adjusted more to how Destiny run their system. You pick up a drop, you get to see it straight away and equip it or dismantle it if you want to. A perfect and simple system in my opinion. Now, what happens when you die in the game? Death is always a necessary evil in most games. It's frustrating when you die and have to start all over, but it has to be there or games would just be too easy. In Anthem, when you die in a squad, you simply have to wait in one spot for one of your teammates to revive you. There's no waiting for 15 or 30 seconds to respawn on your own in any part of the missions, and there's no spectator mode to see how your teammates are doing, which is really frustrating. Destiny do it really well in the fact that they have darkness zones, certain areas and missions that restricts respawns, but it was tailored to what you were doing at the time. In normal strikes you could just revive yourself but only after 30 seconds, while in harder activities like Nightfall strikes you couldn't just self-res, you had to rely on your other teammates after the 30 seconds timer. I'd like to see something like this in Anthem. Now let's move on to flying, which is one of the things I was most excited about. Flying in an Iron Man suit in an open world is a dream in a game like this, but sadly, at least for keyboard and mouse users, the movement just sucks. It's just not fluent, it has mouse acceleration on it, which just makes it so damn difficult to control. Yeah, I mean you can customize the settings, and that does help a little bit by turning down mouse acceleration and flying response up, along with the sensitivity, but yeah, after tweaking it to my liking, it still just didn't feel all that amazing. It does get better as you get more used to it, but I'd like to see Bioware make some pretty drastic changes to this before it's released, but we'll have to wait and see. I hear that Controller is a lot better, so I'll give Controller a try in the open beta. Now, one of the major issues within this beta is the servers and the loading times. Now, I know it's a beta and you can expect server and bug issues, but it was really frustrating playing the game throughout the weekend. Sometimes when you were trying to connect to the game servers, it would just say that it was unable to connect, so try again later, which is fair as a lot of people would be attempting to connect and throttling the servers, but the main frustration was a bug that caused an infinite loading screen. You would jump into an expedition, and while waiting at the loading screen, which by the way is super long even on PC, you'll get a loading bar at the top and it will almost be at the end and it would just stop moving, and then the only way to get around this would be to close the game and load it back up. But Bioware do get points for the fact that when you disconnect or close the game as you join an expedition, then when you boot the game back up, it will detect this and it will give you the option to join back in with the expedition or go back to the city, and 90% of the time I would encounter this bug, so I had to rely on this feature to be able to play at all. I do wish that I had more time to play the beta and to get max level, but the loading screen bug, and with my limited playtime being a dad and all, just didn't give me the opportunity to do that, but I'm hoping in the open beta, but the bug is patched patch and I can explore the game a bit more. So to summarize, let's go over the pros and cons. Pros: it's a beautiful looking game. Visuals and particle effects are absolutely amazing. You've got deep customizable gear and a combat system. Potentially a great story, but we'll soon find out when we play more of the game. Flying, just in general, but once it's fixed, then yeah, it's definitely a pro. Ability to play all classes with one character is a big plus in my book. Combos to make you feel like a god in the field is amazing, and the open worldness of it. Cons: clunky controls for flying with keyboard and mouse, bullet sponge enemies, they do need more fight mechanics within the game. Loading times, could just be because it's a beta, no respawn on your own, have to rely on teammates to revive you, you can't change gear within a mission, and you can't see loot until the end of the mission. Now, like I said earlier on in the video, this review is completely my own opinion. Some people may agree with the points I make and others may not, but this is just how I personally feel about the game. I can't see it being a Destiny killer just like most people were anticipating. Destiny may have some dry spells of content, but they hit the absolute jackpot with their combat and loot system. Now, I'm not going to write off Anthem just yet. The game has potential, but it's in desperate need of some fine tuning. I would say that the game is more like Warframe than Destiny, given that you have different javelins like different Warframes, the combat being third person, and there are some open world places in Warframe in which you can fly around in. The customization options and the countless amount of builds that you can do is pretty awesome. Flying is pretty cool in combat once you get used to its clunky controls, and I love the combos in this game. All in all, it's a pretty good game. I was expecting more, but again, this is just a demo, so I just can't be too harsh in the game just yet. I can see myself sinking a lot of time in the game as the customization has a lot of depth to it, but whether I'll spend as much time as I do in Destiny, that I'm not too sure on yet. I'll definitely check out the open beta on the 1st of February and see if any changes have been made, and I'll be picking up the game once it's out on the 22nd of February. I hope that you found this review helpful. Hopefully I wasn't bashing the game too much. As I said, it is a great game from what I played so far. There's just a few bits within the game that I'd like to see adjusted, but it really does have potential to be an amazing game. If you enjoyed the video, then drop a like to put a smile on my face, and if you're new to the channel, then drop down just below the video to hit that subscribe button and notification bell to keep up to date with all my latest videos. More to come on Anthem in the future. Thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Here we go.